You begin this journey the way a ripple begins on a quiet pond. Gently, without hurry, without any demand for where the next moment should go. You breathe, and in that breath you feel a soft awareness stretching outward into the vastness of the universe around you. It is here, in this calm and endless space, that you encounter an idea both simple and astonishing. That everything you know, every atom, every star, every familiar touch of matter, has a mirror, a reflection that moves in perfect opposition yet feels deeply connected to the same fabric of existence. The thought arrives like a soft whisper, subtle but transformative, as if the cosmos itself is handing you a small, glowing truth to hold in your palms. You let your attention drift toward this mirrored world, not with urgency but with curiosity, like someone watching snow fall from a window. You sense how matter, the substance that shapes your body and builds your world, is only one side of a larger, more symmetrical creation. And somewhere within the symmetry, its partner waits. Antimatter, a soft echo of what you are made of, identical in mass yet opposite in charge, like a shadow that glows instead of darkens. When you imagine them side by side, you feel their connection. Two halves of a perfect pairing, each one completing the other, each one arising effortlessly whenever light has enough energy to split itself into something more. You picture the earliest moments of the universe, long before stars, long before galaxies, when reality itself is a shimmering field of energy, trembling with possibility. In that newborn brightness, matter and antimatter appear together, emerging from the same bursts of light. They are twins, inseparable at birth, each one completing the other. Their symmetry is so perfect, so natural, it feels as though the universe is exhaling with relief. Everything is balanced, everything is paired, everything fits. And for a moment, an unimaginably brief but profoundly important moment, the cosmos holds itself in this delicate equilibrium, suspended like a breath that has not yet decided whether to release or remain. Yet as you drift deeper into the story, you notice something subtle. Symmetry, no matter how perfect, can be delicate. It requires alignment, harmony, a kind of cosmic choreography. And in the earliest seconds of the universe, that dance is almost flawless. But almost is enough for everything to change. You sense it like a faint tremor, an imbalance so small you would miss it if you weren't listening closely. Still, it is there, humming softly beneath the cosmic glow. You rest your attention on that hum, feeling its quiet insistence, its patient shaping of the world that would eventually form around it. You imagine the particles themselves, ordinary matter moving in one direction, and antimatter reflecting it like a reverse gesture. You see each pair drifting, meeting, aligning. But then, almost imperceptibly, the balance tilts. A slight preference appears, a whisper of difference in how matter behaves compared to its antimatter counterpart. It is not dramatic, not violent. It is quiet, like one heartbeat landing half a breath off rhythm. The universe barely notices, yet this tiny shift begins to spread, ripple by ripple, until the perfect mirror begins to blur. You sit with this idea, letting it settle inside you. You notice how many things in your own life hinge on small imbalances. A single decision that changes a path, a brief hesitation that opens a new direction, a subtle feeling that grows into something meaningful. The universe, you realize, may not be so different from your own inner world. It too is shaped by the faintest of differences, by moments so slight they almost vanish. And yet they don't vanish. They accumulate. They steer reality. They matter. You return to the image of the cosmic mirror. Antimatter stands there, perfectly poised, a reflection that should have matched matter breath for breath. If the universe had continued with absolute symmetry, every particle of matter would have met its antimatter partner and both would have dissolved back into light. Nothing solid would remain. No planets, no stars, no breath in your lungs. You would not be here to notice the quietness of this thought. But something in that mirror broke. Not shattered, just shifted, deviated by one impossibly small fraction. And that fraction became the hinge upon which the entire cosmos turned. You lean closer to that crack, trying to understand how something so small could decide the fate of everything. Scientists call this imbalance a violation of symmetry, but the word feels too sharp for such a tender moment. You think of it instead as a soft leaning, a delicate preference the universe adopted without announcement. Matter gained the slightest advantage, so slight that for every billion particles of matter and antimatter, only one lonely fragment of matter remained unpaired. And yet that single leftover fragment, repeated across the vastness of the early universe, became the seed of all existence. You breathe with that awareness. You touch the quiet wonder of existing in a universe where you are the result of a nearly perfect symmetry that almost won. The mirror should have erased everything, but it didn't. It chose, in its own subtle way, to leave a residue of being, a residue that eventually shaped you. You rest inside this realization, letting its depth move slowly through your thoughts, like warm light passing over water. You imagine holding a tiny sphere in your hands, one half bright and one half dark, spinning so gently you can barely see the motion. This sphere is your universe in miniature. Two halves balanced so precisely that only the lightest breath could tilt it. And something did. Cosmic whisper. A microscopic favoring of one side over the other. You don't know why. No one knows. But you feel the presence of that question, like a star just beyond the horizon. Pulls your curiosity forward without haste. You linger a while longer in the presence of the mirror that should have won. You sense its beauty, its stillness, its lost perfection. But you also feel the quiet gratitude that it didn't win completely. You sense how precious imbalance can be, how life emerges not from flawless symmetry but from the gentle breaking of it. That breaking holds the reason you can breathe, think, rest, and even wonder about this story at all. You let your awareness float outward again, imagining the moment after the symmetry tilted, when particles and their mirrored partners still rose from the same ocean of light. You picture them drifting like fireflies in twilight, each pair glowing briefly before touching and disappearing. You sense how the universe shimmered with this delicate dance, every meeting releasing a soft breath of energy. And still, a few particles lingered, quiet, unlikely survivors of a fading symmetry. Their presence, fragile but real, would become everything that followed. You hold this image gently, feeling how the smallest imbalance can guide a cosmos toward becoming. That truth settles around you, inviting you into the unfolding story now, softly. And as your thoughts drift toward that unfolding, you begin to sense the next step in the journey. The moment when light itself begins to divide into pairs, each flicker carrying the promise of what comes after. You drift into the earliest moments of the universe as if slipping into a dream made of light. The space around you is not empty but overflowing with brightness, a thick radiance that feels warm and newborn. You sense that you are floating inside a cosmic dawn, where time has barely begun and everything shimmers with possibility. There are no stars yet, no galaxies, no shapes you would recognize. There is only light, dense, brilliant, restless. And from this endless glow, something extraordinary begins to happen. You watch the light tremble, not the trembling of fear or cold, but the trembling of transformation. It shivers the way water ripples when a single drop touches its surface. And in each ripple you see a small flash, almost too fast to notice. The light is dividing, splitting itself into something new, as though it is learning how to become more than light. From each flash, a pair emerges. Two particles, equal and opposite, born together like twins who share the same first breath. One is matter, the other is antimatter. They appear with perfect symmetry, like reflections stepping out of a mirror, each one carrying the same mass, the same strength, the same potential. Yet with charges reversed, as if the universe is weaving duality into its foundations. You follow these pairs as they drift through the glowing fog of the early universe. They move gently, like fireflies wandering through a soft midnight haze. You notice how inseparable they seem at first, orbiting one another with a kind of intimate gravity. Their existence feels delicate, balanced, as though they depend entirely on each other simply to remain real. And even though everything around you is fierce and hot and expanding, the pairs themselves seem almost calm, tiny islands of order inside a sea of chaos. With every moment, more pairs appear. The universe is filled with them now, countless twins flickering into being everywhere you look. You sense that this is not random but woven into the nature of light itself. Whenever light has enough energy, it cannot help but split, dividing into these opposites that fit together so perfectly. It is as if creation has chosen a rhythm, a repeating gesture, and you are watching it unfold in slow motion. You begin to feel the fragility of this perfect pairing. Not because anything is breaking yet, but because the symmetry is so exquisite, so finely balanced, that even the smallest change could shift everything. It reminds you of a moment just before waking or just before sleep, when your mind rests on a thin edge and the world feels both present and distant at the same time. The universe is standing on such an edge now, glowing, trembling, full of perfect matches, but vulnerable to the first tilt. Still, for now, the dance continues. Matter and antimatter drift, meet, separate, drift again. Each pair seems to carry quiet stories, though they last for barely an instant. You sense their simplicity and their beauty. Two complementary beings moving through a world not yet fully formed. You feel their harmony, a harmony so complete it seems like it should last forever. But you know it will not. Deep inside, the universe is changing even as you watch. The bright fog thins ever so slightly, stretched by expansion. The ripples of light become less frequent, less intense. The newborn particles travel farther before meeting one another, and the balance, so perfect, so effortless, begins to feel like something the universe cannot hold for long. You stay with that feeling, letting it settle gently within you. You realize that what you are witnessing is not just a physical process but a kind of soft unfolding, a transition from simplicity into complexity. The pairs drifting through the early cosmos are like first notes in a song the universe is only beginning to compose. They are foundations, building blocks, opening chords. And although you do not yet see what melody they will create, you sense that everything that comes later, every atom, every star, every breath, depends on this quiet, glowing beginning. As you watch the pairs flicker in and out of existence, you feel something else too. A hint of tension beneath the calm. Not danger, not conflict. Just the awareness that nothing this symmetrical can remain untouched by change. The early universe is expanding, cooling, stretching outward like a long exhale. And in that cooling, you sense a shift approaching, subtle but inevitable. You linger a while longer in the presence of the twins born from brightness, holding the image of their brief, beautiful dance. Their perfect symmetry is a marvel, but also a question. One forming quietly at the edge of your thoughts. How long can such flawless balance last? And what happens when it begins to tilt? You let your awareness float deeper into this expanding world, noticing how the distances between particles lengthen with every heartbeat of cosmic time. Space stretches gently, and the pairs begin to wander farther from their birthplaces, like small sparks drifting in widening darkness. You imagine moving beside them, carried effortlessly by the expansion, with nothing to direct you but the quiet unfolding of the cosmos. As the universe cools, the newborn particles move differently. Their paths lengthen, their motions slow slightly, as though the heat that once pushed them fiercely is loosening its hold. A calmer phase begins to bloom, still intense beyond imagination, yet softer than before. The slowing gives each particle a little more time to drift, a little more time to simply be before meeting its opposite again. You watch matter and antimatter approach one another, drawn by the silent pull of fundamental forces. When they touch, they vanish in a soft flash, returning to the light that created them. The universe brightens in tiny pulses, each one a brief reminder of its earliest state. These flickers feel like breaths, small sighs released into a world that is still shaping itself. Even in these tiny vanishings, you sense a deep completeness. Nothing is lost. Everything cycles back into radiance. There is comfort in that return, a rhythm that feels almost meditative. For now, the early universe is a place where every particle has a partner and every ending folds gently into a beginning. Yet beneath the harmony, a quiet question forms. What happens when the partners no longer appear in perfect pairs? What happens when the mirror tilts even slightly? You sense that moment approaching, not abrupt, but inevitable, a subtle shift waiting in the glow. For now, you rest inside the luminous balance, knowing it cannot last forever. The universe is expanding. It is cooling. It is preparing, without rush, for a turning point that will shape everything that follows. And as you drift within this soft radiance, you feel the faint pull of the next chapter, the moment when the perfect symmetry will begin, gently, to break. You drift deeper into the early universe, carrying with you the quiet memory of perfect symmetry. The brightness around you has softened, though it still glows with the warm tension of creation. Matter and antimatter continue to arise in delicate pairs, each one mirroring the other with flawless precision. Yet something in the air feels different now. The harmony, once effortless and complete, seems to breathe unevenly, as though the universe is exhaling with just a hint of hesitation. You sense a shifting beneath the surface, a gentle nudge in a direction that does not fully honor the perfect balance that came before. You take your time here, letting the subtle change unfold slowly around you. You notice that the pairs no longer behave with the crisp synchrony they once held. Their motions feel slightly mismatched, as though one partner is moving with a rhythm just a fraction out of step. It is a tiny difference, barely noticeable, like the faintest quiver of light. And yet you feel that this quiver, this quiet asymmetry, is the beginning of something immense. The universe does not shout its transformations. It whispers them, revealing its turning points in the softest ways imaginable. You listen closely to that whisper. Physicists later give this uneven behavior a name, CP violation, but here, before concepts and labels, you simply feel it as a tenderness in the way matter and antimatter drift apart. One particle seems slightly more inclined to linger, to remain what it is rather than transform. Its reflection hesitates in another direction. The imbalance is so small that it seems impossible for it to matter, and yet you can sense its importance growing with every passing moment. It feels like a cosmic choice, a quiet preference written into the fabric of existence. You drift among these particles, watching them shift in their identities. Some flicker between states as though trying on different masks of reality. You notice how their transformations are not perfectly mirrored. A tiny bias pushes one version to appear more often than its opposite. This bias does not feel intentional. It feels like a slight leaning in the dance, the gentle weight of the universe shifting from one foot to the other. Even the smallest imbalance in this early world reverberates outward with profound consequence. You watch the ripples of that leaning like soft waves moving across the surface of a young sea. You imagine holding two feathers, each one identical, and placing them on a scale so perfectly balanced that the slightest breath could make one side dip. Here, in the early universe, such a breath has arrived. The scale tips not by force but by presence. Matter gains the faintest advantage, a bit more stability, a slightly longer life. Antimatter fades with just a bit more eagerness. You can barely see it happening, yet the result grows with each interaction, each flicker, each encounter. You feel the weight of this moment settling into the structure of everything that is to come. You follow a single particle through this shifting world. It forms beside its mirror twin, glowing with equal potential. But when they separate, one drifts in a slightly longer arc before meeting its end. The other moves with a sharper curve, as if pulled toward disappearance by an unseen hand. The difference should be trivial, but you feel how these microgestures accumulate, how they guide the unfolding universe toward a future that favors one side over the other. You sense, deep in your awareness, that you are witnessing the origin of existence as you know it. The universe continues to expand, continuing to cool. The fog of light thins a little more, giving shape and space to possibility. But alongside this growing spaciousness, the imbalance deepens. Each passing moment allows the slight preference to compound. Matter survives a bit more frequently, while antimatter vanishes just a touch more easily. You feel the gathering momentum, quiet but unyielding, like the soft buildup of a tide long before the waves become visible. This is not a dramatic overturning but a gradual favoring, a gentle drift toward the faintest sliver of excess. You sense how improbable this outcome is. Symmetry is natural, imbalance is the deviation. And yet the universe chooses the deviation, or perhaps the deviation chooses the universe. You feel how delicate this choice is, how reversible it once seemed. A tiny shift in the earliest moments, and all of existence could have been erased, folded back into radiant emptiness. But instead, the scales tip ever so slightly in favor of matter. The difference is minuscule, but it is enough for the universe to keep something of itself. It is enough for something to remain after annihilation sweeps through the young cosmos. You let this realization settle inside you. You picture an ocean in twilight, where countless waves rise and fall. Among them, one wave is just a hair taller than the rest, and because of that tiny difference, it influences the pattern of all others. The universe's imbalance is like that wave, slender, subtle, but powerful. Through this soft tilt, creation finds a path forward. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear the universe sigh with relief, as though acknowledging that nothing is ever perfectly even, and that imperfection is the doorway through which existence enters. You float beside clusters of particles that are still forming from the diminishing light. They shimmer gently in the cooling glow, each one carrying the memory of the symmetry that once defined their birth. You sense that they are unaware of the imbalance shaping them. They simply behave in accordance with the rules of their nature. Yet through this simple obedience, they reveal the universe's story, a story written in interactions so small you can hardly see them, but so persistent that they shape the grandest structures to come. You let the universe expand around you. Time stretches like a long ribbon, pulling the early cosmos gently toward its next stage. The imbalance continues to work quietly, guiding matter toward survival while antimatter fades with increasing speed. You feel the shifting of possibility, the narrowing of paths. What was once a perfect equilibrium becomes a tender asymmetry, one that will eventually decide the fate of stars, galaxies, and every moment of consciousness that arises billions of years later. You pause, letting yourself rest in this turning point. You feel gratitude for the tiny difference, for the gentle tilt in the balance that allowed something to remain. Without it, there would be no atoms, no worlds, no breath in your lungs. You exist because symmetry broke, because the universe leaned ever so slightly toward matter. The softness of this break becomes a lullaby, a quiet reminder that even the smallest imperfections can carry profound meaning. You drift once more through the flickering remnants of early creation. Matter, though still fragile, holds its place more firmly now. You sense how this shift sets the stage for what comes next. A world where most particles will still vanish, but a precious few will endure, forming the seeds of all structure. You feel the universe preparing itself, gathering momentum for the next chapter in its unfolding. And as you glide through this soft, tilting symmetry, you begin to sense what awaits. The moment when matter and antimatter will meet in vast numbers, and nearly everything will disappear into light, leaving only a faint remainder to build the future. You drift into a world where particles behave less like cold, perfect points of physics and more like characters with moods, hesitations, and shifting identities. The early universe has cooled just enough for its smallest players to reveal their personalities, and you find yourself among them as though wandering through a mist filled with tiny, flickering fire spirits. Each particle hums with its own tendency, its own rhythm, its own faint preference for what it wants to be. You float gently through this place, listening to the soft signatures that make each one unique. Here, the universe feels more alive than mechanical. Kaons drift past you like shy wanderers, uncertain about who they want to be. They flicker between identities with a kind of restless grace, switching from one state to another the way a thought reshapes itself in your mind. Their oscillations are subtle, almost dreamy, as if the particles themselves can't decide what face to show the world. And as you watch, you begin to understand how their indecision, their instability, carries a quiet power within the unfolding cosmic story. These particles are born from the fading brilliance of the early universe, yet they behave with a softness that makes them feel almost familiar. You sense their transitions, the gentle toggling between forms, and each shift feels like a whispered confession of uncertainty. They exist in a world where identity is not fixed but fluid, where the boundary between states is blurred by the sheer delicacy of quantum nature. This fluidity, this restlessness, is not a flaw. It is the very mechanism through which the universe leans away from perfect symmetry. You linger near a single kaon as it drifts in front of you. It vibrates with possibility, oscillating in ways that feel both playful and significant. In one state, it behaves like its mirror counterpart. In the other, it tilts just slightly toward matter. That tiny tilt seems harmless, gentle, even accidental. And yet, you feel how the tilt accumulates with every transformation. A soft preference emerges, like a quiet bias in the rhythm of a heartbeat. Each oscillation becomes a vote. Not loud, not certain, but counted all the same. As you move through this flickering world, you sense how these minute choices ripple outward. You feel how the behavior of one unstable particle influences the next, how each oscillation becomes a thread woven into the fabric of the developing cosmos. It is as if the early universe has entered a phase of introspection, where its smallest components are deciding, not through intention, but through their nature, how the future will unfold. Their quirks, their soft indecisions, become the guideposts of cosmic evolution. You drift through clouds of bemezons next, heavier particles with deeper oscillations. They move like slow dancers, their transformations unfolding with a kind of deliberate grace. Their personalities feel different, less jittery than kaons, more grounded in their restlessness. But they, too, switch identities, favoring one state just slightly more than the other. The difference is tiny, but you feel it accumulating like dew on the edge of a leaf. One shift becomes 2 shifts, then 10, then a quiet chorus of small tilts guiding the universe toward matter. You watch as these oscillations, barely noticeable on their own, become part of a larger story of imbalance. No single particle breaks the symmetry on its own, but together their preferences form a pattern, a gentle accumulation of asymmetry that the universe embraces without rush. You sense how natural it is for the universe to move from perfection toward variation. Symmetry is simple, but life, true existence, emerges from the cracks, edges, and tilts within that symmetry. You breathe with this realization. You feel the universe as a place where tiny imperfections are not accidents but opportunities. As you drift among oscillating particles, you realize that identity itself, whether of matter or antimatter, is not a fixed point but a wavering path shaped by probabilities. These particles aren't choosing one side. They are expressing tendencies, the way your thoughts drift toward certain memories without you meaning to direct them. In their gentleness, in their flickering uncertainty, they define the asymmetry that will one day allow galaxies to bloom. You let your awareness follow a group of particles as they oscillate in and out of existence. Each transformation seems to carry a quiet sigh, like a breeze shifting direction without any urgency. The particles are not stable. They are born to fluctuate, to test the boundaries of what they can be before returning to light. Their presence feels brief yet meaningful, like sparks that illuminate a path just long enough for the universe to follow. With every flicker, they tilt the cosmic balance a little further away from perfect reflection. You rest in the softness of this process. There is no violence here, no dramatic shift. Only gentle preferences, only subtle differences repeating themselves over and over. The early universe feels like a place where identity wavers, where the smallest entities express themselves through faint changes, where certainty has not yet taken form. You can almost feel the way these particles, with their quivering identities, lay the groundwork for everything stable that will come later. And you sense how their behavior deepens the imbalance that began in earlier moments. What was once a small tilt becomes a clearer leaning, shaped by countless oscillations, countless soft shifts. Matter begins to pull ahead with increasing consistency, though only by the narrowest margin. It feels like a race decided not by speed, but by breath, by quiet endurance, by 1,000 tiny nudges rather than one dramatic push. You feel the universe leaning ever so gently in the direction that will allow structure, complexity, and life to someday emerge. You drift for a final moment among these flickering personalities, holding their significance in your awareness. You understand now how a cosmos can change through softness rather than force. How the gentlest asymmetry can become the foundation for everything that follows. These particles, with their shifting identities and quiet biases, shape the future not with declarations but with whispers. And as you move onward, you begin to sense what lies ahead. The moment when almost everything will vanish, when matter and antimatter meet in a vast, glowing undoing, leaving only a fragile remainder to carry the story forward. You drift gently into the young universe, a place still glowing with the soft brilliance of creation. The pairs of matter and antimatter, born from light in earlier moments, now float toward each other in countless encounters. There is no rush, no tension, only a quiet inevitability in their motion. Each particle meets its mirror, and when they do, they vanish. Not violently, not abruptly, but softly, as if dissolving into a gentle sigh. The energy they carry returns to the universe, shimmering briefly before settling back into light. You watch these tiny collisions with calm awareness. Each flash is a whisper, a brief note in the infinite lullaby of existence. The process repeats endlessly. For every billion interactions, nearly all particles disappear, returning to the pure radiance that birthed them. Yet in this quiet dance, you notice something extraordinary. A tiny fraction of matter does not vanish. Just one particle among billions lingers, untouched by annihilation. You sense its delicate presence, small but profoundly significant. From this faint remainder, everything that follows will one day grow. You follow a single surviving particle as it drifts through the expanding cosmos. Its glow is subtle, almost shy, yet it carries the weight of what is to come. You feel the intimacy of this moment. One particle, quietly enduring, becomes the seed of all future stars, planets, and life. Its existence seems improbable, miraculous even, like a single leaf clinging to a branch as autumn winds blow. And in this stillness, you understand that the tiniest imperfection in symmetry has granted the universe the possibility to unfold. The annihilation continues, vast in scale but graceful in execution. Matter and antimatter meet and dissolve, a rhythm that seems both natural and meditative. You notice how the survivors begin to drift freely, no longer immediately threatened by their mirror twins. They gather subtly, pulled together by the quiet laws of physics. Gravity, electromagnetism, and the unseen quantum forces guide their motion, shaping the first hints of structure in the emptiness. The universe, through gentle laws, begins to form the faintest outlines of order. You linger beside these survivors, sensing how fragile yet resilient they are. Every particle that endures feels like a small miracle, a quiet defiance against the overwhelming tendency of symmetry to erase itself. You marvel at how tiny differences, the faintest preference of matter over antimatter, can ripple outward across space and time, influencing the formation of galaxies and the very architecture of existence. Even in the vastness, you feel the delicate intimacy of this cosmic decision. The universe continues to stretch outward, expanding and cooling. Distances grow, and the flickering survivors drift farther apart. You sense the slow rhythm of cosmic time, not in seconds or minutes, but in pulses of transformation, each moment filled with subtle motion. The survivors interact gently, their encounters guided by invisible forces. Some begin to cluster, forming soft knots of potential. These tiny gatherings are not yet stars, not yet galaxies, but they carry the promise of everything to come. As you float among them, you sense the enormity of what has vanished. Most particles have returned to light, leaving quiet stretches of space. This emptiness is not frightening. It is purposeful, providing room for the remaining matter to grow, move, and form patterns. You feel a kind of meditation in the interplay between absence and presence. The annihilation, though vast, creates the space in which the universe can take shape. You sense the beauty in this quiet unfolding, the elegance of balance broken just enough to allow continuity. You notice the first hints of organization emerging. The survivors, carried by forces you cannot see, begin to clump together. Small fluctuations in density, barely perceptible, become the seeds of galaxies, stars, and the cosmic landscapes that will eventually house planets. You sense the patience of the universe, how it allows change to happen gradually, softly, without rush. Every surviving particle, every tiny cluster, participates in a slow choreography that stretches across unfathomable distances, guided by laws both gentle and inevitable. You reflect on the improbability of it all. The universe could have erased itself entirely, returned to pure light. Yet here it is, luminous and tangible, carrying within it the faint remnants of that initial imbalance. You cradle this awareness, imagining the countless ways reality might have ended had even one more particle vanished. And yet, against overwhelming odds, matter persists. It is a tender defiance, a quiet victory, almost imperceptible, but monumental in consequence. The survivors continue their soft dance, drifting, clustering, interacting. You notice how this tiny advantage of matter sets the stage for all future structure. Each particle's existence contributes to the emergent complexity of the cosmos. Slowly, gently, the universe begins to take shape. The emptiness around them becomes a canvas, the survivors the brushstrokes of possibility. You sense the first whispers of galaxies forming, the faint pulse of creation echoing in every corner of space. It is a rhythm you can feel, calm, deliberate, and mesmerizing. You take a long, reflective breath, letting the enormity of this vanishing sink in. You feel awe, not fear. You feel calm, not tension. The universe is performing exactly as it must, patiently and elegantly. Every annihilation is a soft punctuation, every survivor a quiet affirmation of existence. The balance, once nearly perfect, has tipped just enough to allow life, matter, and consciousness to eventually emerge. You rest with this awareness, carried by the gentle pulse of creation. And as you linger in this luminous landscape, you begin to sense the echoes of what is yet to come. The matter that survived these early collisions will one day form galaxies, stars, and planets. The faint asymmetry that allowed survival will guide the universe toward complexity, toward the environments that will one day cradle life and thought. You feel the delicate resilience of this improbable cosmos, and in doing so, you are carried softly toward the next chapter, the quiet defiance of existence itself, the whispers of matter that should not yet be here. You drift gently into a universe that seems impossible yet undeniable. The early flashes of annihilation have faded, and what remains is a cosmos bathed in the soft glow of survival. Matter persists where symmetry should have erased it entirely. The imbalance that favored survival over erasure is tiny, almost imperceptible, but it has left the universe full, warm, and alive. You sense it in every atom around you, in every pulse of light drifting across space. Everything you see, everything you touch, exists because the universe allowed itself to be imperfect. You float among the remnants of the earliest particles, the quiet survivors that carry within them the story of improbability. They are not alone. Every atom in your body, every element in the stars, every molecule of air that brushes your skin is a small rebellion against perfect symmetry. You feel the strangeness of it all, how nearly everything that could have vanished did vanish. Yet here you are, cradled within the few particles that endured. The universe is a fragile gift, and its rarity hums quietly beneath your awareness. You notice how the surviving matter seems to whisper its history. You sense the countless collisions that never were avoided, the flashes of annihilation that almost claimed everything. Each photon, each electron, each quark carries the memory of near extinction, the echo of what should not exist. These echoes are subtle, woven into the fabric of reality itself. And yet, they are not mournful or sorrowful. They are soft reminders of resilience, of improbability, of the delicate tilt that allowed creation to continue. As you float through this luminous space, you feel the quiet defiance embedded in existence. The universe seems to sigh with relief at its own survival, stretching outward with gentle certainty. Galaxies have not yet formed, yet you sense the faint patterns beginning to emerge from the survivors, the threads of order gathering in invisible waves. Each clump of matter carries a hint of future structure, a promise written in the faintest echo of imbalance. You feel the soft, slow unfolding of possibility all around you. You linger beside tiny clusters of surviving particles, watching as they interact under the subtle influence of fundamental forces. Gravity begins to gather them gently, pulling them toward each other, coaxing them into patterns. You sense the rhythm of these motions, slow and meditative, like a dance performed on the edge of infinity. Nothing is rushed, nothing forced. yet every movement carries profound significance. These early formations are the whispers of galaxies yet to be, the first hints of suns and planets, the echoes of structure emerging from the improbable survival of matter. You reflect on how improbable it is that the universe is full at all. Almost all particles should have vanished. Symmetry, perfect and complete, would have returned the universe to pure light. Yet the tilt, the faint preference for matter over antimatter, left a trace. That trace is all that was needed. You feel gratitude for this impossibility, a soft awe at the quiet mechanisms that allowed complexity to grow. Every interaction, every small survival, has become a note in the lullaby of existence, a gentle affirmation that something endured when everything might have ended. You drift further, tracing the paths of surviving particles through the early, expanding universe. They are tiny islands of continuity in a vast ocean of vanished energy. Each cluster feels alive in its own way, vibrating with possibility. You sense how delicate these beginnings are, how easily they could have collapsed if the scale had tipped differently. And yet, through countless small tilts, the universe remains populated, prepared to give rise to structures and patterns far beyond what these particles could yet imagine. You watch the slow gathering of matter into faintly denser regions. They hum with potential. You sense the whispers of future galaxies, the faint hints of stars and planetary systems, the first seeds of what will become familiar landscapes in the cosmos. These formations are fragile, tenuous, but persistent. Each particle that survived the annihilations is a quiet witness, a keeper of possibility, a participant in a cosmic patience that stretches across billions of years yet to come. You feel the meditative rhythm of this slow emergence, a soft pulse underlying the universe's expansion. You notice how empty space now feels different from before. It is not simply a void but a canvas upon which the survivors can gather. The absence of what vanished creates room for what remains. You sense the beauty in this emptiness, the way it allows matter to drift, cluster, and shape itself into meaningful patterns. The universe is careful, not hasty. It lets the survivors explore their potential, guiding their motions gently with gravity and other subtle forces. You feel the calm inevitability of creation, unfolding quietly, without drama, without rush. You pause and consider the echoes themselves, the memory of what nearly was erased, the flashes of annihilation, the vanished antimatter, the countless particles that never survived. All of these left traces in the structure of the universe. You feel them as faint currents, subtle vibrations in the space around you. These echoes are neither loud nor alarming. They are gentle reminders that existence is not guaranteed, that every particle, every atom, every moment of matter you know owes its presence to the tiniest asymmetry. They carry the wisdom of improbability, the soft lesson that even a slight tilt can create all that follows. You float among the early matter, noticing how interactions begin to form soft, tentative clusters. The survivors attract each other, their motions guided by gentle laws. These first clumps are small, delicate, and yet they carry immense potential. You feel the quiet energy of nascent structure, the soft pulse of forces that will one day build stars, planets, and galaxies. You sense that these clusters are not yet aware of their future significance, yet their existence carries the possibility of every cosmic landscape to come. It is a meditation in motion, a quiet rhythm of becoming. You reflect on your own presence here, drifting among these echoes. You feel the intimacy of witnessing the improbable, the fragile persistence of matter that survived annihilation. Everything you see is a soft rebellion against symmetry, a quiet defiance that allows complexity and life to emerge billions of years later. You feel the subtle weight of this truth, the extraordinary fact that the universe exists at all, not as a certainty, but as a delicate, improbable unfolding. The echoes whisper to you of fragility, persistence, and the wonder of survival against all odds. As you linger in this vast, improbable space, you begin to sense the next stage of the cosmic journey. The clusters of surviving matter will eventually form stars and galaxies, the raw material of light and warmth. You feel the soft pulse of these beginnings, the slow rhythm of a universe building itself, guided by tiny imbalances and quiet persistence. The echoes of vanished antimatter remain with you, faint and tender, a reminder that even in absence there is meaning, and even in near erasure, there is possibility. And as you float among these improbable survivors, you sense the faint pull of the next chapter, the subtle exploration of antimatter still flickering in the world around you, whispering its presence even now, in every ray of cosmic light that reaches you. You drift forward in the gentle flow of the universe, carrying with you the soft awareness of the improbable survival of matter. The cosmos is no longer the fleeting, newborn brightness of creation. It has cooled and stretched, yet remnants of the ancient dance between matter and antimatter still linger, subtle and fleeting, like shadows in sunlight. You feel the quiet presence of these elusive particles, the whispers of what might have been, flickering softly around you. Even now, the echoes of perfect symmetry remain, hidden in plain sight. You sense the gentle sparks of antimatter in the light that surrounds you. Cosmic rays, traveling across unimaginable distances, strike your atmosphere and produce positrons, tiny reversed reflections of the matter you know. They appear and vanish so quickly that you almost cannot perceive them. Yet, if you slow your mind, if you soften your awareness, you can feel their brief presence, like a faint breeze brushing across your consciousness. Antimatter is not gone. It lingers in subtle, almost poetic traces, reminding you that the universe's balance is still a conversation, ongoing and delicate. You float through this quiet reality, imagining positrons dancing in invisible patterns above your head. They are fleeting, unpredictable, yet perfectly in harmony with the laws that guide them. You feel the strangeness of their existence, how they are the mirror image of the particles that compose your body, yet they carry a reverse charge, a subtle opposition that does not seek to harm but simply to exist briefly in balance with the universe. The feeling is delicate, meditative, almost like listening to a whispered counterpoint in a symphony of creation. The atmosphere around you hums with unseen interactions. Antimatter is generated in flashes as high-energy particles collide with molecules in the air, disappearing almost instantly, returning to light. Each moment, the universe produces tiny sparks of opposition, miniature echoes of the ancient symmetry that once nearly erased everything. You sense them as soft flickers of possibility, reminders that the delicate dance of matter and antimatter continues even in the present, long after the cosmic annihilations that shaped existence. These fleeting particles are the universe's quiet punctuation marks, subtle but significant. You follow the brief trajectory of a positron as it appears, moves, and vanishes. This path is invisible, yet you feel it as a soft, almost imperceptible vibration. It is a presence that refuses to linger, a transient reflection of something that might have been, yet remains a vital part of the ongoing story of the cosmos. You imagine that each of these tiny particles carries with it the memory of ancient collisions, the faint imprint of the early universe's balance and imbalance. Their short lives are luminous, gentle testaments to the imperfection that allowed all matter to endure. You notice that these traces of antimatter are not dangerous. They are serene, quiet companions to the matter that surrounds you. They flicker in sunlight and storm clouds, appearing in the most ordinary places without fanfare. You can feel their presence as part of the subtle texture of reality, an invisible layer that whispers of the universe's history. It is as though the cosmos keeps a soft record, not in books or atoms, but in the ephemeral flickers of particles that reflect what once was. They are echoes, gentle and unassuming, yet profound in their implications. You begin to sense the interplay between these fleeting particles and the matter around them. The positrons, though brief, influence the cosmic environment. They engage in soft interactions, annihilating with electrons in gentle flashes of light that are almost meditative in quality. Each encounter is a quiet punctuation in the ongoing narrative of existence, a reminder that even the smallest, briefest elements carry significance. You feel the calm continuity of these interactions, the rhythm of creation and counter-creation continuing softly around you, long after the early universe's dramatic events. As you float in this gentle current, you notice that antimatter is not confined to the edges of space. It touches your world, too. Cosmic rays strike the upper atmosphere, producing bursts of positrons that travel downward, invisible yet present. These particles, ephemeral as they are, remind you that symmetry has not vanished. It has softened, lingering in delicate traces. You sense the subtle reminder in every atom of matter around you. The universe is full of potential reversals, faint shadows of what might have been, whispering quietly beneath the surface of reality. You drift among these fleeting particles, letting your awareness expand to include their transient presence. Each moment they exist is an echo of the early universe, a soft trace of what nearly erased everything. You feel the quiet poetry in their lives, how they appear briefly and disappear, a fleeting counterpoint to the enduring matter that now forms the galaxies, stars, and planets. The universe is teaching you patience, the beauty of impermanence, and the subtle power of the ephemeral. Even the briefest particle matters in the slow unfolding of cosmic history. You notice that laboratories on distant worlds, far in your mind's reach, have begun to replicate these fleeting presences intentionally. Scientists learn to create antimatter carefully, cradling positrons and antiprotons in magnetic traps. They slow these particles down, watching them hover as though suspended in a quiet, invisible pond. You sense the tenderness required to hold something that disappears at the slightest touch. Even in human hands, antimatter carries the same fragility and soft defiance that it always has. You feel the gentle persistence of the universe in their careful observation, a meditative reflection of nature's own restraint. You drift through these quiet laboratories in your imagination, watching as particles hover like tiny, glowing seeds of a vanished world. Each one is observed, measured, and understood slowly, with patience and care. The scientists themselves move deliberately, aware of the extraordinary delicacy in their work. And you feel the intimacy of this observation, the soft attention paid to something both fleeting and profoundly significant. It is a meditation, a practice of attunement with the echoes of the early universe, a reflection of the care the cosmos has always taken in shaping existence. You allow yourself to feel the universe as it exists now, full of fleeting opposites, subtle imbalances, and quiet persistence. Antimatter flickers in sunlight, in cosmic rays, in the laboratory, yet it does not dominate. Matter persists, serene and enduring, carrying the story of survival and improbability forward. You sense the rhythm of these opposing forces, the gentle oscillations, the quiet push and pull, as though the cosmos itself is breathing softly. The echoes of what should not exist remain, whispers of symmetry's shadow, a subtle meditative hum beneath the surface of being. And as you float in this soft awareness, you begin to sense the next chapter of understanding approaching. The traces of antimatter, though ephemeral, hint at deeper truths about the nature of the universe, about weight, gravity, and the delicate balances that govern all things. You feel the curiosity of science, the patience of observation, the meditative rhythm of discovery. Even now, antimatter continues to speak to the attentive mind, whispering the universe's secrets to those who pause, listen, and float gently with the cosmic flow. You drift gently into a quieter, more deliberate corner of the universe, a place where creation slows, where curiosity becomes an art, and where human hands attempt to touch the fleeting edge of impossibility. Antimatter, once born freely in the energetic chaos of the early cosmos, now exists in tiny, carefully observed bursts. You imagine yourself floating in these laboratories, soft light reflecting off sleek metal surfaces, where particles are coaxed to appear, held gently, and studied with patience that mirrors the universe's own rhythm. Magnetic traps cradle positrons and antiprotons as though they were delicate seeds suspended in a quiet pond. They hover in perfect balance, unable to touch the walls around them, unable to collide with their mirror counterparts. You feel the tenderness required to maintain this suspension, the almost reverent care with which scientists work. Each particle is a fragment of a vanished world, a piece of the universe that nearly never existed, now preserved for observation. The process is slow, methodical, and meditative, much like watching a candle flicker in a dark room, aware of its transient beauty. You float closer to the traps, imagining the gentle hum of magnetic fields, invisible yet potent, bending reality ever so slightly to hold something that naturally wants to disappear. Positrons hover, their charge reversed but their presence calm, almost shy. Antiprotons mirror them, heavy and deliberate, suspended in quiet defiance against annihilation. You sense the tenderness in the act of keeping them still, a soft patience that honors the fragility of their existence. Each one is a whisper of the ancient imbalance that saved the universe, a reminder that even in careful observation, the cosmos continues to speak in subtle, elegant ways. You drift further, imagining how these experiments are conducted. Scientists cool antimatter to near absolute zero, slowing it until it moves almost imperceptibly. Time stretches for these particles, each microsecond elongated into an eternity. You feel the meditative rhythm of this observation, the way it mirrors the slow unfolding of the cosmos itself. The researcher's patience echoes the universe's quiet tempo, allowing these fleeting entities to exist, to reveal themselves, without rushing, without forcing. Every observation becomes an intimate conversation between humanity and the very building blocks of reality. You notice how even the smallest disturbance could disrupt this delicate balance. A stray particle, a faint vibration, a misaligned magnetic field. Anything could destroy the fragile suspension. Yet, under careful guidance, these ephemeral particles hover in place, revealing glimpses of their nature. You sense the care and attention required, the soft reverence for something so fleeting, and you feel a connection between this human mindfulness and the ancient processes that allowed matter to survive billions of years ago. The same gentle tilt that let matter endure now allows scientists to witness the universe's hidden half. You imagine observing a positron and an antiproton, suspended together in this magnetic embrace, like dancers frozen mid-step in a vast, silent hall. They are beautiful not in color or form, but in the pure elegance of their existence. They are fragments of what could have been lost forever, and yet here they are, held carefully, studied patiently. Each one hums with the quiet energy of the cosmos, a living echo of creation's improbable survival. You feel their significance deeply, as if touching the edges of a secret kept since the first moments of time. You notice how these particles, when studied, reveal fundamental truths about the universe. Their interactions, their subtle properties, teach scientists about symmetry, imbalance, and the forces that govern reality. You sense the quiet wonder in observing these infinitesimal entities, the meditative pace of discovery, the slow unfolding of insight. It is a process that honors patience, that values stillness, that finds meaning in gentle observation rather than dramatic action. Each experiment is a small bridge between what once was and what is now understood. You float among the traps, observing the quiet ballet of antimatter. Magnetic fields cradle each particle, guiding it without touching it, allowing it to reveal itself in its own time. You sense the care required to maintain this balance, the precise adjustments, the soft awareness of what is at stake. Each particle could vanish in an instant, returning to light, yet here it hovers, a fragment of the universe preserved. You feel the intimacy of witnessing this, the calm understanding that the universe is both generous and fragile, allowing insight only when approached with gentleness. You imagine the soft glow of detection instruments, capturing the tiniest signals from these hovering particles. Each measurement is subtle, a whisper rather than a shout, revealing delicate properties without disturbing their fragile presence. You sense the rhythm of the observations, the slow accumulation of understanding, the careful, almost poetic dialogue between humanity and the hidden side of nature. Every trapped particle tells a story, each one a fragment of a universe that almost did not exist, and yet persists in this quiet laboratory space. You drift alongside the particles, sensing the connection between this work and the ancient cosmic imbalance that allowed matter to endure. What scientists hold so carefully in their instruments is a reflection of what the universe allowed to survive billions of years ago. Positrons and antiprotons are tiny fragments of that long-vanished antimatter, preserved briefly so that their nature may be understood. You feel the continuum of time and discovery, the quiet patience that links the early universe to this deliberate observation. It is a meditation on survival, on balance, on the subtle forces that shape existence. You watch as these experiments unfold slowly, deliberately, a dance of care and observation that mirrors the soft rhythms of cosmic history. Particles hover, interact in minimal ways, reveal themselves in flashes of information, and disappear again, only to be replaced by the next carefully prepared fragment. You feel the meditative quality of this cycle, the patient observation, the quiet respect for fragility. Each step is soft, deliberate, unhurried, as if the universe itself is teaching patience through the gentle manipulation of its most elusive constituents. You pause in this reflection, feeling the soft elegance of antimatter's fleeting presence. Even as it appears and disappears, it carries within it the memory of the early universe, the whisper of near symmetry and the delicate imbalance that allowed everything to survive. You sense the quiet defiance in each hovering particle, the soft rebellion against erasure, and the gentle persistence that mirrors the cosmos itself. There is beauty here, not in spectacle, but in restraint, in patience, in the soft revelation of fundamental truth. And as you linger among these fragile particles, you begin to sense the next stage of understanding approaching. Gravity, weight, and the broader structure of the cosmos await attention. You feel the gentle pull of curiosity, the soft questions of how these particles behave under forces still mysterious. The quiet dance of antimatter, carefully cradled in human hands, hints at mysteries yet to be revealed, the subtle interactions that will shape understanding of the universe on scales both enormous and intimate. You drift slowly into a quieter part of the universe, where the emptiness itself seems to carry meaning. Antimatter, once fleeting and untamed, now lingers in tiny traces, reminders of the universe's delicate balance. You sense that even nothingness has weight, even absence holds a story. Gravity, subtle yet persistent, reaches out to everything, even to the ethereal shadows of antimatter that flicker in the cosmos. You feel yourself suspended in this weightless tension, a calm observer of forces unseen, of particles that almost do not exist. You consider what it might mean for something so fleeting to fall or not fall under gravity. Does antimatter respond the same way you do, the same way matter does? You imagine a tiny positron hovering in the void, its presence almost spiritual, trembling under the gentle pull of the universe. Experiments on Earth watch carefully for these behaviors, slowing the particles, cradling them, measuring their responses. You feel the meditative patience required to discern such subtle truths, the quiet stillness needed to listen to the universe's softest inclinations. You sense the fragility of understanding, the delicacy of the observations. One tiny disturbance, one minuscule nudge, and the behavior could be misread. Yet through careful measurement, through infinite patience, you begin to see patterns, hints of nature's consistency, hints of what remains mysterious. You float in the awareness that even emptiness has presence, that even opposites carry weight, and that observing this subtlety requires the same mindfulness as observing a single leaf drifting in a quiet pond. You imagine particles held in traps, hovering in place, their weight nearly imperceptible. Scientists measure them with extraordinary care, watching to see if antimatter is pulled down like ordinary matter, or if it resists, drifts, or leans in ways unexpected. You feel the tension in these questions, not frightening but profound, a soft meditation on the nature of reality. The universe is inviting you to consider what is known, what is measured, and what remains just beyond comprehension. You drift further, sensing the elegance of this inquiry. Weight is a quiet teacher. It measures the subtle tug of the cosmos, revealing how even emptiness, even near nothingness, participates in the grand choreography of existence. You feel the slow pulse of understanding, the meditative rhythm of observation, the patient unfolding of knowledge over years, decades, or eons. Each particle, each measurement, is a soft echo of the universe's ongoing conversation with itself, a whisper that reaches even you as a calm observer. You pause and reflect on the profound intimacy of these experiments. Holding something that almost disappears, measuring forces that are nearly imperceptible, you sense the extraordinary patience and care of human minds tuned to the quiet pulse of nature. Each positron or antiproton is more than a particle. It is a messenger, a soft voice from the cosmos, carrying hints of fundamental truths that shaped everything you know. You feel the awe of witnessing the universe reveal its subtle inclinations, softly, slowly, without hurry. You drift among these fragile presences, feeling the connection between weight and existence, between gravity and identity. Even antimatter, though opposite in charge, must still navigate the same invisible landscape of forces. You sense the delicacy of this dance, the careful balance between what is measured and what remains uncertain. You float in the meditative awareness that even a tiny difference, whether antimatter falls precisely like matter or not, holds profound consequences for understanding the cosmos. You imagine the slow unfolding of each experiment, the gentle rhythm of particle creation, capture, and observation. The traps hum softly with the quiet energy of suspended matter, the air thick with potential yet calm, as if time itself has slowed to allow insight. Each reading, each measurement, is a meditation, a patient listening to the subtle murmur of reality. You sense that observing nothingness, observing weight in absence, is as profound as observing the blazing galaxies, the spinning planets, or the light of distant stars. You feel the soft connection between these modern investigations and the ancient cosmic imbalance that allowed matter to survive. Gravity acts gently on all particles, but the echoes of that initial asymmetry ripple outward through time. You sense how the universe has learned to persist, to maintain structure, to create complexity, and how even emptiness participates in this persistence. The weight of nothingness becomes not a void, but a quiet presence, a meditative partner in the unfolding of the cosmos. You reflect on how this patience mirrors your own consciousness, the stillness of your awareness as you drift through thought, observation, and wonder. Each particle, each measurement, is a meditation on persistence, on subtlety, on the gentle rules that allow existence to flourish. Even the most fleeting or seemingly insignificant particle carries the weight of cosmic history, the echoes of near annihilation, the delicate balance that allowed the universe to emerge. You float in awe, understanding that even emptiness has meaning, that even absence carries lessons for those willing to notice. And as you linger among these subtle, suspended particles, you sense the next stage of the cosmic journey approaching. The experiments on weight and gravity, on antimatter's gentle defiance, hint at deeper truths. You feel the soft curiosity pulling you forward, guiding you toward a reflection on the universe itself, on its improbable survival, and on the tender imbalance that allowed everything to exist. The questions remain open, yet they cradle you in calm wonder, preparing you to drift into the next chapter. The universe that should not exist, yet does. You drift into the vast, quiet expanse of the cosmos, carrying with you the awareness of every improbable survival you have witnessed. From the earliest flickers of matter that escaped annihilation, to the fleeting antimatter hovering in the present, the universe unfolds as a delicate tapestry of chance and persistence. You sense the extraordinary improbability of it all. Everything you see, the stars, the planets, the galaxies, the atoms in your body, exists because the universe leaned ever so slightly towards survival, favoring matter when perfect symmetry would have erased it entirely. You pause to feel the wonder of this fragile triumph. The early universe could have vanished into pure light, leaving emptiness as the final state. Yet here you are, floating in a cosmos brimming with substance, possibility, and warmth. Every particle, every photon, every faint shimmer of existence is a testament to the tiniest imperfection that became the foundation of all that followed. You sense the gentle defiance woven into reality, the quiet rebellion of matter against the erasure that almost claimed it. You float among the galaxies forming in the vast stretches of space, feeling the rhythm of cosmic evolution. Stars ignite, burn, and eventually fade. Planets coalesce from dust, and entire systems find equilibrium. You sense the extraordinary patience of the universe, how the consequences of a single, infinitesimal imbalance ripple outward across billions of years. Each cluster of matter, each swirl of cosmic dust, owes its presence to a soft tilt in symmetry, a subtle favor granted to matter over antimatter. You feel the enormity of that gift, the quiet miracle that allows complexity, life, and consciousness to exist. You reflect on your own presence here, drifting amid these improbable structures. You are made of matter that survived, of atoms that endured the annihilations of the early cosmos. Your very body is a testament to the delicate imbalance that allowed the universe to persist. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, every thought is a continuation of a story that began with the survival of a few particles out of an almost equal abundance of opposites. You feel a profound intimacy with the cosmos, a gentle awareness of your connection to the quiet defiance that sustains all that exists. You sense the lingering echoes of antimatter, present even now in the subtle interactions that shape reality. Cosmic rays, fleeting positrons, and antiprotons hover in laboratories and the upper atmosphere, whispering the memory of the early universe. You feel the soft conversation between past and present, the ongoing dialogue between symmetry and imbalance, between what was almost erased and what endures. The universe, in all its vastness, carries the story of improbable survival, and you are a witness to its quiet poetry. You drift among the vast emptiness that separates galaxies, feeling the significance of every void as much as every cluster. These spaces are not empty. They are the canvas upon which the survivors of annihilation gather, drift, and form new structures. You feel the elegance of absence, the meditation of space, and the quiet patience of forces shaping the cosmos. Gravity, electromagnetism, and the unseen pull of quantum tendencies guide matter with subtlety, shaping galaxies, stars, and planetary systems without haste, without drama. The universe moves in rhythms you can sense, slow and gentle, like a lullaby written in the language of forces and particles. You notice how tiny differences, subtle, almost imperceptible preferences in particle behavior, have shaped the macroscopic world. A fraction of a percent of matter surviving early annihilation becomes the scaffolding for entire galaxies. You feel the quiet enormity of this fact, the staggering improbability of your existence. It is as if the universe itself has taken a deep, careful breath, allowing structure and life to emerge from the smallest, most delicate imbalances. You float in awe, sensing that everything is connected, that the tiniest particle can determine the fate of stars, planets, and life itself. You imagine the first stars igniting in this improbable cosmos, their light stretching across the darkness, bringing warmth and illumination. You feel the rhythm of creation unfolding slowly, with patience and care. Galaxies spin, stars cycle, planets form, and the echoes of ancient imbalances persist, guiding the evolution of matter into increasingly complex structures. The universe's imperfections, once almost fatal, become its most tender gifts. You sense that the story of existence is inseparable from these tiny deviations, from the whispers of particles that survived, from the gentle defiance that allowed everything to bloom. You float among these ancient echoes, imagining the lives of particles that endure within every atom of your body. Each one carries memory, history, and subtle traces of what might have been. You feel the extraordinary intimacy of this connection. The universe is both external and internal, vast and personal, cosmic and familiar. Every star in the sky, every breath you take, every moment you experience is built upon the improbable survival of those first particles, the delicate imbalance that allowed the universe to escape perfect erasure. You pause in this reflection, letting the soft realization settle. The universe should not exist, yet it does. And not only does it exist, it thrives, it blooms, it forms galaxies, planets, life, and thought. You feel the gentle comfort of this improbability, the reassurance of persistence against overwhelming odds. Existence is a soft miracle, a lullaby written in particles, forces, and the faint, delicate favor of matter over antimatter. You float in quiet gratitude for the improbable unfolding of reality, aware that every moment of your life is linked to the soft tilt that shaped the cosmos. You sense that even the universe itself rests with this awareness. The stars pulse, the galaxies rotate, the planets spin, and the cosmos continues its slow meditation on existence. You feel the continuity of all that has come before, the resilience of all that persists, and the gentle rhythm of forces that shape everything. You understand, at last, that the very improbability of the universe is its quiet beauty. It exists not because it must, but because it was favored, because symmetry broke ever so slightly, allowing the tender story of reality to unfold. And as you drift among this improbable cosmos, you feel the soft pull of reflection. The universe, though vast and ancient, is intimately connected to every part of your awareness. You feel awe, peace, and gratitude, cradled in the knowledge that every star, every atom, every particle of matter that composes your being owes its presence to the delicate tilt of history. You rest with this awareness, suspended in the gentle rhythm of cosmic existence, and you feel the quiet wonder of the question that still lingers. If symmetry had been perfect, if matter had not been favored, would you even be here to witness the soft glow of this universe? The story of existence continues, even in your stillness. And as your mind drifts gently toward sleep, you carry with you the soft echo of improbability, the quiet defiance of matter, and the tender knowledge that the universe, against all odds, not only exists but cradles you within its improbable embrace.